Hi, everyone. I am so excited today because I get to speak with author Cynthia Swanson, and we're going to be talking about both of her books that she has up there, but more specifically, The Glass Forest, because that just came out. And just show them the cover of The Glass Forest because I love this cover, and I haven't seen it except for on my phone. Oh, my goodness. Look at that.
Face with the book.
That's so beautiful. I have to tell you the funniest story. So I read books. I have to read books every day. I'm reading constantly. Reading, listening, it's a part of my life. And but I always like to finish up the book right before I talk to you. So it's all fresh in my mind. And, I'm kind of like, because I'm older, I have to have my memory right there. So the house was all quiet, right? And I'm finishing up the last part of this book, and my youngest son is here today, and he slammed his bedroom door, and I swear I almost had a heart attack.
Jumped out of your seat.
I almost levitated. I was like, I didn't even realize, it crept up on me that you don't even realize that you're that tense by the end of your book. And we do no spoilers, but it kind of builds and then builds. And I didn't even realize that I'm like, and then he slams the door. And I'm like, oh my God. And of course it doesn't help that the book takes place in a house. And, so like that right there makes you very on edge about the house. But oh my God, I love this book. It's just, your writing is so beautiful. And like I said, the way you set it up, and it's slow building so that you think you're reading this like book and it's all good and and it's like, oh, some things are happening, but it's okay. And then it just, and then it's like, it just gets But anyway, so where did you come up with the concept for this? Because like I said, we aren't going to talk about any spoilers, but when we're talking about thrillers, it's like, I don't know how much to say. So I'm going to let you talk about it.
Okay, well, I'll sort of give the basic premise of the book, too, so people understand it. The Glass Forest is a three-way narrative. There are three women narrating the book, and the first one is named Angie Glass. She's 21 years old. She is newly married to an older man, and they have a baby boy, and they're living in Angie's hometown in Wisconsin, in Door County, Wisconsin. And Angie is blissfully happy. She feels she's hit the jackpot, meeting this wonderful romantic man, and having a baby and being married. And it's the fall of 1960. And everything's great, and then the phone rings, and her husband's name is Paul, and it's Paul's niece, Ruby. And Ruby is 17 years old. She lives with her parents in a small town in New York, about an hour north of New York City. It's called Stonekill. And she tells Angie answers the phone, she says that her father has committed suicide and her mother has run away. So Paul and Angie drop everything and fly out to New York to be there with Ruby during this catastrophe. And Angie is expecting to go and mother Ruby. She's only 4 years older than her, but she figures she's the adult and she's here to be a mother to Ruby and get her through these times. But she finds that Ruby is a bit more mysterious than she had expected. She's not quite the girl that she had expected, and she does not warm up to Angie the way that Angie had hoped she would. And we're getting little snippets through Ruby's chapters. There are chapters narrated by Ruby, and she's just giving us little tiny clues about what might have happened in her family. And in the meantime, the backstory is being told by Celia, and that's Ruby's mother, and her story starts in 1942 when she meets Ruby's father, Henry, and goes up through the present day of 1960, 18 years later. And so we're getting what happened in the whole story and what happened in their marriage and what happened in their family. And it kind of all comes together, and Angie finds out where this is all going, and we're getting everybody's story of how this all went. And it's sort of, as you said, it's been called a slow burn thriller or literary thriller, and that was my intention in writing it. I didn't want to write a straight up mystery story, a straight up what is often, it's not a whodunit. What I often call it is that it's a whydunit. It's much more about the why and the psychology of why each of these characters behave the way they do, then it's not like you build and build and build and it's like, oh my God, Butler did it. It's not like that. It's not like a mystery that way, but it is sort of one of those stories where it's a very slow burn and you get to the end and you kind of see all these pieces come together.
Yeah, and it took me to after I got done reading it, and I started making notes, and that's when it all came to me that it was only the three women narrators. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, that's right. It was like, because as you're reading it, you're going back and forth, and I was like, that's right. We never got the perspective of the men, but that's
Right.
what's so beautiful about it.
Right.
Because it just, I don't know. I don't know why it hit me at the end like that, but because I went back to the beginning. I always do that with thrillers. I read your setup in the first chapter, because that's when I see how brilliant you are. And then I'm like, oh, she did that so awesome. So awesome that I didn't even realize what was happening, because you get so caught up in the story and because it's kind of like couples. So you get caught up in the couples part of the story.
Right, right. In the two couples, and Paul and Angie and Henry and Celia, and what's going on with their two marriages. Yeah, yeah. And especially in the times, I mean, being set intentionally when it was in the early 1960s, in the 50s and 60s, it was a very, very different time, and women's roles and women's marriages were very different than a lot of the marriages that we have now. There were a lot more restrictions, and things that you might want to do in your marriage, and ways you might want to speak out, and ways you might want to make changes were not that easy. So that kind of gets explored a lot in the book too.
Yeah, and I love historical fiction, and I know that this probably isn't in that category, but you did give a lot of history as to what it was like in that time, that I felt like it was, more than just a thriller. There was a lot of things to get the feel of that time, so that you understand these women. And even just ending it in 1960, we're still getting the feel of like, it was still only 1960,
Right. I mean, basically the story takes place in the 40s and 50s. It ends in 1960, but that 60s, the way we think of 60s and psychedelic and free love and Woodstock and all that, none of that had happened yet. We were nowhere near that yet. It was much more, the story is much more about the way people lived in the 50s than it is about the way people lived in the 60s.
Well, I just have to tell you, I mean, all my book reviewing people over on Instagram are like, read this book, and they were building it up so much. I was like, sometimes I get like, don't build it up so much, but this like passed all my expectations. Seriously, and I read thrillers and books every single day, and I was like, I have to give her like a standing ovation. This is one of my favorite books so far. I mean, I loved it, and then, of course, so I go on, I don't do any research. I take it from them. They are my people. They say, read this book, and then go see if you want to do the interview and everything else. And I go back, and then I see that I missed the bookseller, your debut novel. I think I was the only person in the world who did not read this book, and I was so upset because I really wanted to read it, and I had so many books to read this week that I didn't get it in. And but anyway, show the cover, because you have that book right there.
And I will tell you, you're not the only person. I actually just got an email this week from a book blogger. She's on Chick Lit Central, and she said, I've been meaning to read this book for years and years, and I just sat on my bookshelf when I read it this weekend, and I couldn't put it down. I can't believe it took me this long to read the bookseller. She said the same thing. She felt she was the last person that read it. Okay. This is the bookseller.
So I'm the ultimate last person.
Yeah, you're the second. Yeah, you're second last person.
Well, what's so difficult about books is because as they're flowing and coming out, that's what happens is like you're trying to keep up, especially the book reviewers and people like me. It's like we try to keep up, and it's very difficult sometimes. Sometimes it's not.
That's what's exciting about getting a second book out, is that you hope that some readers that discover you with the second book will go back and see what else is out there. So I am getting a lot of people that are getting in touch with me and saying, I hadn't read the bookseller, but I read the Glass Forest, and now I'm excited to read the bookseller as well. So It's been good for folks.
Exactly. And I'm going on vacation this weekend. I'm going to California, and I will be taking that book with me, because I was like, I get to read for like fun this weekend, so I am going to be doing that. But okay, so tell me the story, because a lot of new authors are watching this, and the story of the bookseller, because there's news about that, right?
Yeah, well, there's lots of news about that. So the bookseller was my debut. It came out in 2015. And yeah, it's going to be a movie. That's probably the news you were looking for. Yeah, it's going to be a movie starring Julia Roberts. So
we are. Like, what? I mean, when I saw that she bought the rights, she's producing it, she's starring in it.
Yes.
And so I'm picturing like, so Julia calls you up and says, "Hey, Cynthia."
That would be great, but I have actually not talked to Julia Roberts at all. The closest I've gotten is, sending an email through the agents that's, please thank Miss Roberts for me. So, hopefully I will at the premiere, if not before, get to meet her. But she's been interested. She actually got interested in this book before it was even published. So we had a long time of trying to pull together the finances and pull together the numbers to make it work and to make sure that she could actually do it. So she's been very dedicated to it for almost 4 years now, which is pretty exciting. That I mean, you never know with a movie. I mean, you know, until you're looking at the marquee, anything can happen and things can fall apart. But she has stayed fairly committed to this project for a number of years. So I'm hoping it will happen. The last I heard is that the screenwriter has handed in a draft of the script and they're reviewing the draft. So we'll see. You know, just every little step that goes along, I get hopeful that it really will happen. But you know, other than that, I just try to put it out of my mind. It's a great thing and it's an amazing honor, and I'm so honored that she's on the project and wants to do it. At the same time, my job is to write books, and so I'm working on a third book right now and promoting both of the books, especially The Glass Forest, and that's where I put my energy.
Yeah, and that amazes me. That, you know, as an author, like, because I've talked to other authors that, you know, their books have become movies, and they say the same thing. Like, at first I thought they'd be like, oh my God, it was a dream come true, but the process, it's like, well, in the meantime, I mean, if you were to just sit around and wait for that to happen, like.
Right, you go crazy. Yeah, you just, and actually the whole business of writing books and getting an agent and getting a publisher and all that, it's a lot of waiting. So I always advise writers, any authors I'm talking to who are going through any part of that process, is just go write another book, because that's the best way to keep yourself moving forward and not have all your eggs in one basket. And hopefully most of us have more than one book in us, and you can just keep going with that and you can put your energy into that. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, and you help young authors. I saw on your website's amazing. I'm going to have it underneath here so everybody can go to it. But because you have lots of cool stuff on it. I love people who have great websites, because authors, because it seems like it's a dying thing, but it really isn't for us readers. We love going to your websites, and you know, yeah, I think it's great. But I see that you also help. I mean, you coach young writers.
Yeah, I do some coaching when I can. I teach classes here locally in Denver when I get the opportunity, or do workshops and conferences. And then, yes, I also do one-on-one editorial consulting when projects come along. So that's fun to do. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, like, when I want to tell people, like, the story is so tight. Like, I can almost tell by your writing how you can help other authors, because it's so tight, and like I said, it just, the way that it's moving through, and how I became so connected to these women, you know, and I went through periods of time of liking and then not liking each one of them. And I think you did that on purpose for me. I mean, I really do. I think it was done on purpose so that you didn't, like, fall in love with their story. You had sympathy for and compassion for a lot of them, and then, but there were times that you were like, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing here, you know?
Yeah. Right. Well, and that's because in my opinion, characters should be like real people. I mean, they're complex. You know, there are very few of us who are 100% good or 100% bad. We have our good moments and our bad moments, and I think well-developed characters are the same way. It's not, you know, they can lean maybe one way or the other, but I always feel like characters are more authentic when they have their flaws as well as their wonderful characteristics. And the opposite is true too. I mean, that the people that are evil aren't just evil in a vacuum. If the evil didn't come from nowhere, there's a reason. It usually has to do with their history, it has to do with their family, or their growing up, or, you know, their mental capacity, or all kinds of other things that can bring that in, that I think are important. It's not just that evil just came out of nowhere. So
right. I love that. And I saw that you love to design, right?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you say mid-century, are you talking like the 50s and 60s?
Yep.
Okay, so I have a funny story. Before I told you the story, I wanted to at least make sure we were talking about the right kind of thing. Because I know very little, but I have a daughter-in-law who's really into design, okay? And she's got a house. And so she decides she wants to make her kitchen retro. She wants to go back to the 50s and make it like a 50s, right? So she finds a refrigerator from the 50s. That's like been, you know, rewired, whatever. She finds it. She gets my son to buy this refrigerator, and it has no freezer. Okay. But what they didn't realize is that it wasn't just like it didn't, not only didn't it defrost, but the electricity was off, and everything was just, and they paid a lot of money for it. It wasn't just It wasn't cheap. And they ended up taking it back. But I had to give her credit for trying, because he was like, Mom, this wasn't just a refrigerator that was like our technology and looked like a 50s. It was like, seriously, a 50s refrigerator. And it just wasn't going to work. It wasn't.
Well, I'll give her a tip and a plug for one of my favorite companies. If they do still want that look, it's called Big Chill. And Big Chill makes retro refrigerators. I have one in my kitchen right now. You can look on my website if you want to see pictures of it. It's burgundy colored. It's kind of a dark red, blood red color. And they make them in all custom colors. But it's a brand new refrigerator, and they just take off the outside and they put on this retro skin, and it's really cool. And they ship them anywhere in the country. They're built in Boulder, Colorado, close to where I live, but they will ship them anywhere in the country. They're not cheap, so tell her to save up her pennies and get a Big Chill. But we've had ours for about 4 years, and we love it. It's really
they are not cheap. I mean, they paid a lot of money for this fridge, but so what made you pick that era? Because that is really kind of cool. I never heard, some people like modern, and I've heard different. Like I said, I'm not really into designing, but I was really interested in that you picked that era of design that you like.
For design or for my books, or both? Because both of my books are set in that time period, and my house is sort of set in that time period. The house was almost an accident, and when we bought this house, the house was built in 1958, and it had been updated quite a bit. But we pretty much ripped out all of the updates and retroed it as much as we could, which has been really fun. We've been here about a dozen years, and it's just been a labor of love. So it's just we're trying to bring the house back to the period when it was built. We've done some adding on, and every time we add on, we get salvage materials from other old houses in the 50s. So it looks like we added on like a master bedroom and bath, but it looks like it's always been there, and that sort of thing. So we do a lot of that, and it's funny because when we were doing a big addition on the house was when I started writing the bookseller, and that was about 7 years ago, maybe 8. Gosh, time's going by. But when we did that, I was writing the first draft of the bookseller, which the bookseller set in 1962 to 63, and I got about a quarter of the way into the first draft of that book, and I realized, and it was set in the present day, and I realized that the present day wasn't going to work for the story because the whole story hinges on a missed moment, and it's a missed moment that would not happen in the present day because, without telling you too much, somebody doesn't show up somewhere they're supposed to be. And if that happens today, somebody doesn't show up where they're supposed to be, what do? We all grab our phone and we text, where are you? I'm here, where are you? So I knew I needed to bring the story back to a time when that would not have been done. And we're right in the middle of doing this retro design of the house, and I distinctly remember calling up my husband and saying, I just had a light bulb moment about this book I'm writing. I said, just like bringing the house back to retro, I'm bringing the book back to retro. And he was really cool.
That is so cool.
So I did. So I brought the book back to that time period. And so when I began it, it was for that logistical reason. And then the decor was really, really fun. And the cars and the architecture and the clothes and the music. But as I started writing and researching, the social issues started to really fascinate me. And so when I finished that book, and I brought in a lot of those kinds of social issues about work and motherhood and career and finding those places for yourself, bringing that in that time period, I felt like I wasn't done. And so when it was time to start writing another book and I started working on The Glass Forest, I knew I wanted to go back to that time period again and return to some of those social issues, but in a little bit of a different way, which I did. The Glass Forest, one of the characters becomes paranoid about communists and builds a bomb shelter, and there's all kinds of things that happen that those kinds of things don't happen in the bookseller, but it is a lot of that same sort of it's a level of paranoia that we don't live with today in the same way. Although sometimes we do. I mean, you look at some of the things going on right now in the world, and people read my book and they're like, wow, history repeats itself if we're not careful. So I think it's still relevant.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, one of my favorite shows I'm actually watching right now, because it's on Netflix, is the Andy Griffith Show. And the thing I love about these shows that are still in black and white, and, because I love old shows, especially as I get older. As I get older, I keep going back. But
right.
What I love is watching their everyday life, just seeing what their kitchen looked like, Aunt
Exactly.
Bee's kitchen, and I don't know, it's just, and no cell phones, and it's just the simplicity of that time period that,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And I was born in '64, so it kind of reminds me more of like my mom. It brings like, oh, that's what my mom was experiencing, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do love that, and that's what I did get a lot of in this. Like I said, it bordered on historical fiction. I don't know, you know, that it's listed. I don't think Amazon did list it, but for everybody out there who loves a little bit of historical fiction in there, it's there, and you will definitely get a feel for that time. And
I call it not so historical fiction.
not so historical. I like that. Maybe you could make your own Amazon group.
I'm teaching a class on that. If anybody's in Denver, I'm teaching a class on that in June about writing and researching not so historical fiction. So that's on my website. I'd love to see.
Awesome.
Well, I want to see here.
Well, before I let you go, tell us what you're working on next.
So I am working on another book that's set. It's a little bit further along in time frame. It is set in the mid 1960s, and it is about a complex, very complicated family during the early years of international adoption. So that's been really, really fun to research and write about, and I'm learning a ton and having a great time with it. So working hard on it.
Yeah, you know what? I love when I can tell in the book how much fun you had with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like I can really tell how much fun you had writing this book. Like, yeah, it just comes right through. So I am so happy that I met you. I'm so happy that I found this book and that everybody pointed me to you. And I will be reading this one. I'm going to have all of your links listed underneath here so everybody can find you. And they can go right to the Amazon link. There they are. And look at, what a great cover. The Glass Forest is such a great cover. I love it so much.
Thank you.
So anyway, when the next one comes out, you know where to find me. I will read it.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, have a great day, Cynthia.
You
Bye.
too.
Oh my God, everyone, wasn't she so sweet? I could have talked to her all day, and we almost did because Skype wouldn't quit. I've never had that happen. We like kept talking, and I was hitting quit, and she had to actually like exit out of it. But anyway, thank you so much, Cynthia. I am so happy that I got to meet you. I am so happy that I read this book. I love a great thriller, and I say this all the time, but I read the best thrillers, and this one is really, really good, guys. All her links are listed below here so you can find her, and I just highly, highly recommend this book. Thank you for watching.